Hello, it's Shelley F Knight, bringing you Positive Changes, a Self-Kick podcast. So today I'm joined by Marian Bacol-Uba, and she's the founder of Thriver Lifestyle, is a TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker, business coach, best-selling author, and as well as all of that, she's the host of Thriver Lifestyle podcast and Thriver TV. Welcome, Marian.
Thank you for having me, Shelley.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So tell us, you've got quite a big background there, so please do tell us your inspiring story of positive change.
Yes, and it actually really has to do with, you had mentioned that I'm the founder of Thriver Lifestyle, and that really came through my own transformation from victim and survivor to thriver. So thriver is really that I talk about there's 3 stages really of mindset and of how you operate through life. And for most of my life, I actually was operating in victim and survivor mode. Even when I didn't even realize it, which most people don't even realize it. And so, taking some few years back, I was always that overachiever, even from elementary and high school all the way to college. Had excellent grades, top of the class, sort of checked off all the boxes.
Yeah.
I was really involved in school, did all that. But no one really knew that I had a double life. And from the age of 14, I actually started my longest and most toxic relationship with drugs and alcohol. But no one knew because I did so well in school. I was involved with the church, everything, that was sort of like my secret life.
Oh,
and
wow.
The reason for that was because I needed to continuously escape. School for me and extracurricular activities was actually my escape from home, because home I was being sexually abused by my father. So any chance I could be outside the house and study and do all those things, I dove into. And every time that I wasn't, I wanted to escape reality. So I drank and I did drugs, and that was sort of my outlet. And even at a young age, I had tried to seek help, but I was told, to never speak of it again. And that's, really shameful. And especially coming from an Asian background, we're taught, to not really speak up. Culturally, it's not something where you're taught to speak up continuously. And so I learned to just keep that all down. And I learned that as long as I put this mask on and performed well, like that was good. That was how it was supposed to be. So that continued all the way through college and my career. And by the age of 27, I was a marketing director. I had really excelled in marketing positions. I had also a food blog, and I grew up in LA. So I was one of the first food bloggers, did TV for food shows, wrote for CBS. And so on the outside, it looked like I had everything, together.
Yeah.
Went to the best events, parties, but internally, I kept justifying my actions with my achievements, like, oh, this is fine. I could continue to party and get involved with alcohol and substance abuse because I was doing so well, like I wasn't the usual case, what we think, right? You're on the streets or you have no job. I was the opposite until my double life really came crashing down. And in 2014, I overdosed and had an out-of-body near-death experience that really was my big eye-opener, that I had to change something. I knew I was given a second chance for a reason. And so intuitively, I just bought a one-way ticket and I moved from LA to Miami with no plans, really no friends, no job. I just knew I had to get out from everything that was so comfortable and easy, with a lot of the toxic behaviors. And so in Miami, away from family, friends, a lot of things, I was able to take some time for myself, which I had never really done in my life. I had looked through outside things, whether it was work or working out or partying or whatever, to fill a void, to always keep myself busy. And so this was the first time I didn't have those distractions. And it was a difficult but necessary journey. And from there, I just dove into everything I could find on healing, working with shamans, plant medicine, energy healings. I got deep into meditation and breath work. I ended up becoming certified in meditation and with pranayama. And I started really just sharing all these things that I didn't really grow up with because it was helping me. And you know, a few years later, I finally found the courage through all of my inner work, realizing that my whole life I had been living in victim and survivor mode. Even when I was achieving, was really just in survivor mode. Because when you're in victim mode, and this permeates not just for anyone who's gone through trauma, but in life, we tend to see things from the lens of victim and survivor. Victim is where you give all your power away. You know, you say things like, oh, this always happens to me, or why things never go my way. You don't take ownership that you actually have control of the things that you think and what you do, especially as adults, you know, and how you perceive things. And a survivor, you know, you may be tough, but you close everyone away, everything away. It's kind of the me versus the world mentality, which, you know, also has its own downfalls because you internalize everything and you don't seek help, you know, because you think you have it. And really thriver is the opposite of all that. It's when you take full control of what's happening in your life, your thoughts, your words, your actions, and you realize that only you have the power to truly change your life. And I just started sharing that. And that's how my thriver lifestyle really became. I started this company organically because people started asking me how I did it. And so I became a transformation coach at first. And I realized it was thriver lifestyle because thriver to really remind me of that journey and that everyone has that choice each moment to moment to thrive in life, in business, in relationships, in your career. And lifestyle because it's not an overnight fix. It's actually a continuous journey for us. So it's not just, you know, not a diet, not a quick fix. It's a lifestyle. It's how you embody things. And that's really been my motto for how I work, when I work with clients, what I teach. And over the years, it's really transitioned to incorporate all of that knowledge from years in corporate, years having my own business. I had a marketing agency before too in LA and then in Miami. And I realized that all of my clients that I was helping to, after they got over, you know, their trauma and really healed, they had such beautiful stories and messages to share. And so now my business has transitioned. I'm a business coach, but I help women really share their authentic stories and message to grow their business. And I help them share that online and on stage. So that's really been the transition for, you know, that positive change from what was at the lowest of lows to transforming that trauma and pain into purpose.
See, that is one story. I love it. I'm dumbfounded by it. It's just, you know, for all those
it's a short
years.
version of the many years to get here.
It's just amazing, right? As you said, like a double life, and it really was, you know, like sexual abuse in the home where we should feel safe and secure. And you didn't have that. But here you are just helping others, you know. I call it turning a mess to a message when you start to use your story to help others. And it's just what a journey. So can I ask, just because I'm purely fascinated, what is real things about like the afterlife and that, but to touch on the near-death experience, what happened in a near-death experience?
What happened was so there was a point where I actually like saw myself like convulsing from the overdose, I saw like, it was this out of body experience of really seeing myself, like I was looking down at myself. My friends kind of panicking. And I was shown what would have happened if I didn't come back. So I was shown them putting me in a body bag. I went to my own funeral and I went back up to source. And really words can't describe the feeling of just complete peace and love. But I was given a choice to stay there and come back, and I knew it wasn't time. I didn't know why, because I had never told my story, never, ever. Like for 21 years, I was quiet. really kept it to myself because I had tried telling people when I was, a teenager, and I was not believed. And so that was, I felt so shamed about it. So I didn't even know at that time that I would be even speaking about how openly I'm speaking about it now. I had my TED talk on this. So I just knew it just didn't feel right, and it wasn't my time. And so I went back into my body, right before that time where they called the paramedics on me.
Goodness. And you said that they show you, if you don't come back, what happens, like, the body bag and your life's over and your funeral.
So I saw what would have, happened, because in that space, it's, time isn't what, linear.
No.
I saw it, and it was just a sense of incompleteness, and people just didn't know, like, because one, not many people knew about my double life. So it would have come as a complete surprise to family and like all these things. And so, yeah, it was powerful, even though I couldn't fully grasp what it meant. Now in hindsight, I was able to see how powerful that was. But during it, I was just like in shock, because I wasn't really spiritual back then.
No.
For a while, I wasn't even really religious, because I was just so numb to a lot of things, because my father was actually super religious, so for me, it would just seem so hypocritical. So yeah, it was a very intense, I don't know what words to say, powerful experience.
Yeah, it's probably hard to put into words, isn't it? Because it's just, when you're there, you're there, I guess.
So much that happens, within that time, when you come back and you realize maybe like in our world, not much time has passed, but I was able to see so much in that speck of time.
I just think that's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing.
You're welcome. It was pretty crazy. And when I actually did journey with plant medicine years later, it was close. I mean, not exactly, but it was definitely like a confirmation for all of the things I had learned. Like I was, on the right path. It really wasn't my time, because of all the work that, I was doing and continue to do now.
Did they show you, when you had the choice of coming back, did they show you the good that you would do, which you're now doing?
No, I didn't know any of that. I had no idea. Since 2014 is when that happened. Actually, this month, April, is the 6-year anniversary of that time that it happened. I was in a very dark place 6 years ago. Not only because like 2 of my niece and nephew, who were 6 and 8 months old, passed away within a week from each other. So that was
my
very
goodness.
tough. And there was just a lot of other personal things. So I wasn't in a good place. It was like I started becoming very careless, and didn't really care about that double life, and just like was pushing myself to the limit of the substance and alcohol abuse. I was severely depressed at that time. And yeah, no, I had no idea that I would be doing this work. So when I tell people, like, don't always try to think you don't exactly have the answer right away. You just continue to move forward, doing what you feel is right at that time, and just continuing to do the work, and then it'll slowly unfold for you.
Yeah, because I think when we go through things in life, I think we're dealt the lesson at the time, but I know of myself, like grief and things like that, I don't actually appreciate, or I don't have the awareness of the lesson. But years later, I'm like, that's why I went through that. That's why I had that trauma, and it all starts to come together.
Yeah. I was still very lost after that happened. I had no idea, because I was like, what just happened, but the one thing that really stuck to me was that I had to get out of LA. And so I just followed that. I just followed that intuition. And that's why I moved. And then from there, I followed another one and another one, because I really believe that life, like, kind of, if we had all the answers come to us right now, I know we wish, as humans, we wish we knew everything right now. That's not the journey of life.
No, it's not where the greatest lessons are, is it?
No, it's not. But, just always like intuitively, even though it's tough, and even though you don't have all the answers, it will unfold for you. I made a lot of very tough decisions to leave like a life of comfort, I had everything I wanted and needed in Los Angeles in terms of contacts and my business, like all of these things. But that wake up call was like, that doesn't matter if I was dead or, going down that path of toxic behavior.
Yeah, and that is so true. Do you know what I mean? And it's so, I think it takes less courage to stick with what we know than it does to have that leap of faith or going into that unknown.
Mm-hmm. I think I was just stubborn. Looking back, I had so many signs. I had so many signs telling me that it wasn't right, that I didn't, I just didn't listen. I just pushed it until I guess something extreme had to happen, which is what happened. But yeah, I tell people, like, don't wait until something really horrible happens. If you feel it, just trust in that. And now I've honed in on my intuition so much now, which before I didn't. Now, like, even when something doesn't make sense, I'm like, oh, nope, I'm following that because I've built that muscle.
Yeah, I love working with intuition, but I say that last year I didn't listen to it and I got myself into so much trouble. But it is, as you say, like a muscle. You have to work on it every day. And sometimes you're thinking, really?
Yeah, definitely. I still say that. Really?
Yes. So what was the turning point from, like, obviously you became very intuitive, but what was the actual first step of how you launched Thrive a Lifestyle?
So when I moved to Miami, I just started, getting really obsessed with reading as much, watching as much podcasts, going to events that had to do with healing and inner work and soul work and spirituality and meditation. Like, it really, I went to from like Deepak Chopra to Eckhart Tolle to Oprah. I went to Tony Robbins' event. I went to so many things because I was just hungry for this knowledge that I had never been taught,
Yeah.
and it always called to me. I was like, this happened for years. And then slowly I just started implementing. It wasn't like an overnight thing. Even meditation, I teach meditation now, but I incorporate it into my business coaching and even in my talks, like visualization exercises, things like that. But when I first started, I actually thought, years ago in corporate, I had heard about meditation, but I was like, oh, that's something hippies do. That doesn't work. Years later, it's so funny to me because when I started again, I was always that overachiever. Okay, I'm going to sit for 10 minutes and I'm going to get it right the first time. But we fail to realize, just like when we learn how to drive or when we learn how to walk, it's always awkward and weird at first. Like, it's not, we don't get it right away. It's this like discomfort, but once you keep doing it, you start building that muscle, just like intuition. And so I really was humbled and moving to Miami was very humbling for me. I lost pretty much everything. I got really broke, went through all my savings, until I had no choice, but to go to the tools, because I didn't have the fancy job anymore, lots of money, like all those things. I was stripped down to like the bare, and I had to like really rely on myself for like the inner work to get me through it, and so the turning point was really just to keep, like, even when I would fall off it, I knew that I had to get back on. So starting putting into the routine. Before, I would start meditating maybe like 1 minute, then 1 minute turned to 2 and 3, then it became daily. And then I started incorporating daily gratitude practices, journaling, like all these things that are now a part of my life. Like, I can't imagine my life without it. But before, they were so foreign to me, And yeah, and I think there wasn't like a one yes. It was just, I just kept going at it. Instead of thinking, okay, I'm going to do this for 30 days. Before, when it was so difficult, I was like, I'm just going to do this today, and then the next day, and the next day. It was just like those simple steps. You have to crawl before you can walk, and walk before you can run. And so, then you look back and you're like, wow, I've gotten so far. And that's what I tell all my clients, because some are like, I don't know if I can do, this big talk or be on TEDx. I'm like, I didn't think so either, but just take the steps that you need to do now and keep on the path.
I think that's really good technique that you shared there about the steps. I always talk about, like, my book and my podcast, like breaking things down to bite-sized pieces. Don't aim big,
Yep.
because you're just going to get overwhelmed, and then you're going to think you're a failure, then you're going to beat yourself up. And so I love the fact, you know, it is the step. When you look back, you'll be like, God, I'm miles away, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What other tools can you recommend?
Other tools, so besides journaling, meditation, dance, nature. Before, for me, travel, there was a point in my life where I, you know, did a lot of things on my own, which made me so happy, because for a long time I always had to be surrounded by people, you know, because I didn't even like to be in silence. Now is the complete opposite. I love sitting in silence. I love talking to my guides and angels, meditation, prayer. I do a lot of introspection, you know, now. I love my alone time. I used to travel a lot by myself before too. I think that's really key. When we're all allowed to travel again, and it's safe to travel, I think really traveling and getting to know yourself without anyone else is such a gift.
Yeah, I traveled like, goodness, I've got to try and work out my age now, but I traveled when I was 24, now my late 40s. And I'm so glad I did it back then, because you just get to know yourself. And that's a really good foundation for life. Like, if you know who you are, what you like, what you don't like, when you meet new people, be it platonic or romantic, you know what your foundation is, you know, like your benchmark of what you expect. And it is like, I just dated myself for a year around the world, and it was wonderful.
Yeah. You know, so those are the tools. I also love cooking, and you know, that's therapeutic for me. Dance, movement, being creative, and I think there's no one size fits all. Everyone's so different. So find what really puts you into a state of flow, where you're not thinking about other things. You get really just immersed in it because you just absolutely enjoy it. You know, for some people, maybe it's painting, you know, that gets them into this zone, this flow that, you know, helps them connect to their higher self. Maybe it's playing an instrument or singing, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah.
For some people it's working out, but I think you just have to find that. And when you do, continuously do that. You know, it's that habit. It's a lifestyle, not like an overnight thing.
Yeah, I get the creative process thing. I absolutely love losing myself in the creative process. And I used to do art lessons on a Thursday night. Marian, I was useless. I really was. But I didn't care, because I thought, in that moment, I can't think about anything, you know, like, you know, the shopping list, schooling the kids. I can't think of anything apart from that pen to paper, the paintbrush, whatever I'm doing. I mean, the artwork was shocking. And my mum said, oh, which one of the children did that? And it was her, you know, 46-year-old daughter. But the process is like a healing journey, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it heals the inner child, because it takes you back. You know, we don't tend to do painting and things like that nowadays. So yeah, absolutely love the creative process.
And I think it's so important, because why should we lose that? You know, just because we're adults, we can't do things that are creative, like painting or doing other things. I think that's where we need to actually go back to. And hopefully with this time that we have more time, you know, quarantining, that we realize that these are actually, like, the arts are important, like doing these things, not because it's going to lead to, you know, not because for the point of making money or being productive, but just because it lights us up, is also just equally as important.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of learning coming from this, where people, you know, appreciating nature more, that money's not everything, you know, and it is time alone for the journaling, exercise, nutrition, alone time. So I think there will be real lessons coming from it.
Yeah, really going back to the basics.
Yeah, which is my kind of world. I like it simple. So you help people with speaking.
Yes.
So what tools do you use with that?
Yes, I help women grow their business online using public speaking as a tool, as well as online speaking platforms. So whether they have like a podcast or YouTube channel, things like that. But one of the tools is really, and especially for those who know that they have a message and they want to share it, but they don't know where to start, I always say write it first and then speak it out loud. And then I always do the steps, and then speak it to others, you know, that are close to you. Oftentimes I get clients who say, yeah, I want to speak on this big stage with 1,000 people, and, you know, or 10,000, all that. I'm like, that is absolutely possible. But have you spoken on any stage now? They're like, no. Like, well, let's go back. You know, you have to build that foundation.
Yeah, so it goes back to the small steps again.
Mm-hmm. Because you need to be clear on your message, on how you convey that message, and your ideal audience. I mean, like, you have to make sure you also know that you're speaking to the right audience, because your message won't resonate with every single person on this world, nor should it, because your message resonates with specific people, and that's a good thing, because that means you're making more impact.
Like a niche audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we're trying to set up a business and we want the followers and the audience, and we think, right, we're just going to dilute all of our knowledge and try and reach as many people as possible. And I know I've done it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to be like this spiritual writer. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so boring. And there was no humor. Do you know what I mean? I was like, that's not how I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, I lost a few along the way, because at the end of the day, I'm a bit kooky and I do speak really openly about death, dying, grief, meditation, whatever. But it's easier to be yourself, isn't it? And
Yes.
that is your
Mm-hmm.
audience. You'll attract people. Like, with your backstory, just amazing. Some people won't relate to it because they've just like trundled through life beautifully. But,
Mm-hmm.
we're given our life story for a reason, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's actually the more that you can really be as authentic with your story and message, and you'll attract actually people who love your brand and your message even deeper. They're not just the flybys, like, oh, you have there's that article about 1,000 true fans. You really have. I've had people following me for years, that even before, when I was a food blogger and food writer, because they loved my personality. And when I went through this whole transition, so this is like 10 years, because I had that whole thing, and now it's completely different. I didn't do any of that, but they've stuck with me because my personality, some of the things I talk about are different, but we all have our own certain personality.
That's really interesting. So you still got the same followers, like the true fans?
A few. I'm not all. I've definitely got some new ones, but there are some people who've known me since my food blogging days, and I had like a food show on TV, and they've just seen the transition, and I've asked them, like, especially if the followers are men, I'm like, I really speak to women now. They're like, I just like love your personality and like how you are. I'm like, oh, that's, thank you. So like, we just support everything you're doing. So it's just, it's really nice to know that, as long as you stay true. And there's people that will fall off. I had people, when I started speaking a lot about, the more spiritual things, because I talk about strategy and soul. There's a practical, the tactics, but I believe there's also the energetics and the mindset. And when I started sharing that, I had someone who knew me in my corporate days who were like, you're going to lose your credibility because you're talking about this woo stuff. I was like, if that's what you believe, I'm not really here to make sure that, I stay credible in your eyes, as long as I believe that I'm sharing this truthfully, and this has worked for me. I was like, it may not work for everyone, but I've always said, this is what has worked for me. This is what's worked for my clients and students. It's really up to you if you want to follow and take the steps, but if you don't, that's also your decision.
Yeah, I get that. I think my auntie, she used to call it hocus pocus, and we will call it what you will, but I just love it. And like you're saying earlier, that it's part of my daily practice. If I don't have that, my mental health dips.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Same here.
So I have it every day. I do like yoga, I do my gratitude, choose a card for the day, and I absolutely love it. And recently, I think only in the last few months, like on my social media, started sharing like an oracle card reading, things like that. And it was a real comfort zone thing. I was thinking like, should I, shouldn't I? And I thought, well, I can't think of a nice word to say. I'm just thinking like, I thought, well, screw it, because it is who I am.
Yeah.
And I did a big this thing, kind of like feel the fear and do it anyway, and the courage to be disliked. I was just like, but I like it. It's what helps me when I need that little reassuring insight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I love my goddess and my angel oracle cards. I also have some a few tarot card decks.
Oh yeah, I do a tarot every day, because I think that tells me off. There's no like beating around the bush. It's like, Shelley, it's a sword card, watch out. But you say it's just like living our truth. I think we do ourselves a discredit if we're not going, actually, I love the spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people who say, oh, it's a bit woo-woo or it's a bit hocus pocus, they probably fear it's an unknown to them, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And, everyone's in their own journey, because I remember years ago, this didn't even come across my radar. So I understand things, take time for people, and it's not going to resonate with everyone. But the ones that it does resonate with, I have people in my audience, I call them my thrivers, my thriver tribe, that are like always there and always going to my events and retreats and all that stuff, because they like really believe in it, and it's worked for them. And it's beautiful to see. When you are just authentically yourself, you also give others permission. And as a Asian American woman, and with not many Asian American speakers as well as coaches, I've had many come up to me and be like, I'm so happy to see someone, who looks like me, or I feel I can relate to more.
Yeah, and that must be huge.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's brilliant. Like, to just be role modeling as you are. I think it's absolutely brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have a message about the importance of positive change?
Absolutely. I think positive change is something that thrivers all believe in, and positive change is possible for every single person. But I think it's really taking control of your thoughts, your words, your actions, taking your power back and realizing that you have the ability to bring positive changes in your life. To not wait for anyone else or permission from anyone else, but it's really up to each person. We all have that power inside of us.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing. And it didn't really come till like the more recent years, probably after my travels, like I said, back in my mid-20s, when you have to, I don't know if you have to, but I found myself giving myself permission to be authentic, giving myself permission to let go of friendships, toxic relationships,
Mm-hmm.
jobs that didn't suit me, and to be without money for a while. And it is that permission, that empowerment of self, isn't it?
Yeah. That's
So
where true positivity lies, within ourselves.
yeah, it really does. But I think it is like you often need a life-changing event. It's not always during a beautiful meditation on a yoga mat that we have our realizations. It's often through these life-changing events.
Yes. Yeah. And they can be the most difficult, most challenging times, but just go through it. If you keep ignoring it, then you're just, you're letting it fester, and you're letting it sit there. And that's how a lot of diseases happen, a lot of different sicknesses and all these things that, our society has. There's a lot of people who are overly medicated because they don't want to face, the truth, or, certain things that have happened. But I think that's it's challenging, but it'll make you stronger and more resilient.
Yeah, it's like you said quite honestly about yourself, about you wore a mask really with the alcohol and the drugs and the high achieving. And maybe that's a bit like some people, they go on medication because it is, gives them a barrier against the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's worth it. If I had to go through that again, I would, to know that if I came to this place, and the amount of not just peace that I have, but amount of trust, like I really, I truly love and trust myself. And that's something I couldn't say before, and our longest relationship is with ourselves. So we need to learn how to treat ourselves better, and to be our own best friends, our own supporters, our own, best friends, so that we set the standard for how others treat us as well. And same thing with business. If you don't believe that you're able to grow your business and serve people, how are other people going to believe in you if you don't even believe in yourself?
Yeah, I was smiling. You can't obviously see me, but I am sitting here smiling because I did a podcast on self-love, and I said the same words you said about, you have to love yourself because it's the longest relationship we have. It's the only one from the beginning of our life to the end.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be your own best friend and set the standard for everyone else to follow. So as you were saying it, it's like, you go, girl.
Yeah, it's so true.
So do you have a positive affirmation you say every day?
I do. Every morning I wake up and I say, thank you, God. Thank you, Goddess, that I'm alive, I am happy and healthy and filled with your infinite love, money, and abundance.
I love that. You can't have a bad day if you start it like that, can you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just like, oomph, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, bless you. It's been absolutely amazing talking to you.
Thank you. You too, Shelley.
Thank you so much. I mean, the near-death experience, but what you went through before that, how you're helping yourself and so many others afterwards. I've absolutely loved talking to you.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Bless you. I'm sure people are going to want to find you. So please, we can find you on Instagram, Facebook,
Yes.
LinkedIn, Twitter, and your podcast. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the best way is I'm most active on Instagram. So it's at M as in Mary, Bacoluba. It's at M Bacol-Uba. And then all the links to everything else is there. And my podcast is called Thriver Lifestyle Podcast. It's on iTunes, Google, Spotify, all the major channels.
Fabulous. And did you have a book? You're a best-selling author?
Yes, that is a book I helped co-author called Unleash Your Voice, Powerful Public Speaking for Women.
Unleash Your Voice.
Mm-hmm.
That's fabulous. We'll stick that all on the show notes and then people can come and learn from you, you wise old soul.
Thank you. And yeah, if you're listening to this and you want to connect, feel free to send me a direct message on Instagram.
That's fabulous. I'm sure you can be inundated now. People are going like, wow, help me, save me, tell me about these steps. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful speaking to you.
You too. Take care, Shelley.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please make sure you subscribe and leave a positive review. If you would like to create your own positive changes, you can buy Positive Changes, a self-kick book from all online book retailers or from shelleyfknight.com. If you need a dollop of positivity until the next episode, come like and follow us over on Facebook at Shelley F. Knight, Life Goes On. As always, I've been Shelley F. Knight and you've been amazing.